Hey folks, this is Maximum Woodsman's Finest. You might actually know me from my best-selling book, Aiming is Cheating and 99 Other Rules for Traditional Archery. Now, today we're looking actually at the ILF Longbow. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that this is my favorite type of bows. And right up front I want to tell you, I really didn't want to like this bow. I'm not going to tell you why that was and why I changed my mind. Going on, a good measure. Hey folks, thanks very much for tuning in to another Grip to Tip series episode. Today we're actually talking about the Bosen Archery Reaper Riser, 19-inch and a set of extra long border archery. I think this is the Harrier, the Raptor ILF Longbow limbs. Right up front, a couple of shout outs to the Push Archery, of course, my absolutely favorite archery platform. Thanks very much for making archery great again. In a different note, please check out my custom tabs that I'm making, and of course my new knife that just came out, the PUP, that you can actually get through the link down in the bio below. Absolutely perfect everyday carry, hunting, hiking and everything. Versatile little fixed blade that's legal in most countries. Alright, without further ado, what are we talking about today? Let's take it from the riser out to the tips. Grip to tip as always. Now, looking at the Reaper riser, we have a 19-inch ILF platform. What's first jumping out at me here, what's really important to me, is this riser actually, without being very pretentious in that way, it has quite a lot of deflex. Deflex being a line between the two ILF limb pockets, and from that line you're taking a measurement to the deepest part of the grip. Now this is actually helping you with being more accurate, helping you being more accurate, I have to say, by actually reducing the amount of torque you can introduce into the bow. Now this riser has a couple of decorative elements actually. There is these rubberized little wheels up and down in the limb pockets. I think they're serving a little bit of as a dampener. In terms of grip, as a proprietary grip, I would call a low to medium actually. It's plastic, so you can actually shape it whatever way you want it, and it also comes with a higher grip for anybody who wants to shoot this bow split finger, because you need a little bit of a higher grip for that. Now going out from the grip, there is actually 3 holes in this riser, which is a really cool little feature because there is a tiny little aluminum hump on this aluminum riser. So if you just want to run a bolt and shoot over the hump, over the shelf if you will, this little bolt's going to allow you to push center shot in and out on this way past center shot or cut bow actually. And then you have 2 burger holes if you want to run like me, as always, nap center rest with a little flipper arm, or actually a plunger and a rest. Now the amount of deflex that we have in this riser, please remember this for later, because it's actually going to be a really important feature that's going to come in with the limbs. Now, as always, my super cheap AliExpress, whatever, 20 bucks, 15 bucks, a little dampener up front that makes this bow actually sit in my hand pretty much almost vertical. So I always recommend anybody shooting an ILF bow to actually add something like this to your riser, because it's going to make a huge amount of difference in the repeatability of your shot, in the stability of your shot, and ultimately helping you to be more accurate. Now moving out, like I said, there is this little dampener wheels, and then there is like a pretty standard stainless steel limb pocket setup that's actually covering the limbs, which is something that can look quite nice, because these ILF bows tend to look a little bit like they're pieced together from several pieces. I don't like that personally too much. So when there is something like a limb pocket that's kind of covering the transition, it looks a little bit more streamlined. I personally like this as a little bit of a feature. The riser is heavily skeletonized, so I'm actually going to put the weight of the riser down here below somewhere, because I haven't measured it before I came out. But it's this type of overall bow setup where I feel like I could carry this for a while stalking. I could bring it anywhere without being weighed down. At the same time, it's not so light that I feel like it's not going to aid me in being more accurate. So there is a little bit of weight in my hand. I would say, just off the top of my head, it's probably 1.5 kilograms, somewhere around 4 pounds overall weight. But like I said, I'm going to put it down below somewhere. Then we have a little bit of a brass emblem Reaper riser Bosen bows. Is this like my favorite type of aesthetic? Probably not. Not in a bow like this. However, you know, I can see how someone might like that. And if you don't like it, you know, you can probably, it's just some plaques, you can take it out. Or you can just spray over. And this is another thing with these very simple risers. If you have a riser like this, it's quite inexpensive compared to a lot of 19-inch risers out there. If you want to give it a different color scheme, just break out the rattle can, put a little bit of a base coat on it, and then do on it whatever you want. And I actually might end up doing this with this riser because I like it. The skeletonizing, like I said, is actually doing quite a nice job. Doesn't ruin the balancing of the bow at all. And the overall deflex and overall designs, making it not only with longbow limbs but also with recurve limbs a very nice setup. So you're going towards the direction of maybe a Lancaster Archery Titan 2 19-inch riser. You're going towards the direction of a 19-inch Satori, stuff like that. Maybe even geometry-wise, you're not too far away from an HT21 DAS riser, but all of that with a little bit less extreme lines and also with a different price point. Now, as far as the riser goes, apart from the couple of holes here, obviously, that you can use for either a quiver or a sight if you are so inclined, and pretty much standard also lateral adjustments, which is something that every bow comes with. This is pretty much it for the riser. But while shooting, in the shooting footage, you're gonna actually see that this bow with this riser on is very quiet, and it reacts very positively if I do my piece right, which means that the bow jumps to target perfectly straight, which is something that has to do with the grip design, but also in the overall deflex in the riser. So as far as recommendation on the riser, if I would have any little gripes on it, maybe it's this extra amount of material right above the grip, right at the shelf. If you're looking at it, it's absolutely not necessary because the hump is way further in. Your burger, your rest, nothing would come out that far. However, if I'm putting my hand at the perfect 45-degree angle onto this grip, you can actually see that it kind of interferes with this corner here a little bit. So other brands like VPA, for example, have gotten rid or rounded off this area quite a lot, knowing that most people are gonna grip it like this and not gonna grip it like a pistol grip, right? Where this wouldn't come in as a problem. Now, most people gripping it in a 45-degree angle. This is maybe a little bit in the way. However, it has never been an issue where I said I would have gotten a sore, like a hot spot or like a sore little blister or something like that. So a little bit of a gripe, but other than that, pretty darn decent riser for the money. And now we're gonna get actually to the gripey part of the video and also to the expensive part of the video. So this could be interesting. Fire in a hole. Alrighty folks, now we're talking about these longbow limbs. If you have been following the channel for a while, that you probably know that longbow ILF bows, the whole, the irony about it, if you will, is kind of funny, because at the end of the day, a longbow is probably the most primitive bow that the person can imagine. But there is something about the draw circle of a longbow in general that I really prefer. I feel like it's for my really wrecked shoulders and all that I have from years and years of training and grappling martial arts and lifting and all that. I like the draw circle more because it starts softer and it gets a little bit harder towards the end of my draw and in my anchor, and it helps me getting away from the string a little bit better. However, the problem with ILF longbows in general is that they need quite high brace heights in order to be stable. But then they, of course, they have already a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of performance, and that actually suffers even more if you're putting a very high brace height on. And you have to soften the limb pockets so they don't stack, etc., etc. Now, I got in contact with a lot of different manufacturers of ILF longbow limbs in the past, trying to figure something out to bring ILF longbow content to you and kind of help you with the tuning part of it as well, because it is not that easy. Now, Border was of course on the list. Border of Scotland is, I would want to say, an infamous producer and designer and manufacturer of very, very high performance bows. And as with many of these type of brands, Border has a little bit of a hate, love, love, hate type of followership. I'm not taking part in this discussion at all. This is more of just an observation that I have online, how people react to them. So that being said, this is maybe the first time that I have a product on here that's a little bit controversial from myself as well. When I started dealing with them, I asked them to please send me some limbs, and they actually obliged to that, which I was very thankful for, because at the end of the day, I cannot do these reviews by just constantly buying bows. Bows are expensive. I don't have a lot of money for this, but I still want to bring you the content. So they sent me some, and I don't have a policy where I'm saying I'm gonna rave about your product. If you want to send it to me, then that's fine, but it's my opinion, right? At the end of the day, dealing with them was okay, but it was a little bit tricky, because when the limbs arrived first, they were way overweight, and they still are. I sent them back. They sent me, I think, the same limbs or a different limb pair, and they were a little bit lighter, but they were still like way overweight. What I want to say about them in general is that they're very high performance. They are a little bit heavy for what they are. The craftsmanship is okay. It's decent. For a limb that's somewhere around 600 to 700 euro by the time it arrives here, or even more actually, exchange rates and this and that and the other, it's steep for the craftsmanship. There's a couple of things, a couple of lines that are off. Just as an example, take the upper limb, and you're just holding it right in the camera here. You're gonna see, hopefully, like maybe my face has to move out of the way. You can clearly see that right side and the left side, it's not a perfect square or like a rectangle, so it has like a little bit of a rhomboid, trapezoid kind of shape. So like the two sides of that limb wedge basically aren't even, right? Does that affect the performance? Because it doesn't touch anything, right? It's just the sides that are a little bit kinked like this. It's not a big deal, you know, not at all. Also looking at the limb tips, everything being from carbon fiber, you know, and such. The limb tips are okay, but you know, the transition here is not like really perfectly square. There's a little bit of a dimple right in here in the finish, as you can see right there. Almost a little bit of a dished out area. These are really, really small nitpicking points. I wouldn't mind that, you know, I don't care about that per se. However, I think if you are a top producer with very high price points and you're having some very strong opinions about your own product, then these things shouldn't happen. Especially not if a manufacturer like Bosen or other manufacturers out there, you know, being maybe like factory made, but you know, if you have a human paying attention to detail, these kind of things, in my opinion, should not happen, especially if you have, like I said, that type of price point on a pair of limbs. What we're actually basically talking about is a carbon fiber foam limb with some really interesting colors. It's beautiful. You're gonna see that in the video as well. They have these kind of turquoise foam layers. It's, I think, some action wood for the wedges, and it's carbon fiber tips. They are very well built otherwise, and I think they're quite something different and special in the way that they were designed for these very high deflex bow risers by Border. The Tempest is basically the one that I'm talking about. And because the Tempest being so extreme in its deflex, if you had like a regular longbow limb, like by Bosen, for example, for that to stabilize, you would have to get that brace height here, and therefore also at the grip, so high that the bracelet at the grip would be probably 10 inches. So there would be no performance left on the bow. Now these are XL longbow limbs, because I talked to Border and they said in general it's very important that in a longbow limb there's a long working limb. So I tend to always get XL longbow limbs and then rather shorten down the riser. that being said, so this setup now is 66 inches. And at 66 inches, and this is where the deflex of the riser comes in, I had these limbs laying around for quite a long time because I couldn't find a riser that they worked on. Because when they came here, they had such thick wedges, or they have such thick wedges, to give them already at the low brace height a very big amount of pretension, rather than being really soft, so you have to like brace them very high, like I said before. All of the risers that I put them on, the limbs literally like measured at 65 pounds, you know. It says on here 66 inches XL longbow limbs, 50 pounds on a 19-inch riser. This is a 19-inch riser, and I have a 27-inch draw, so they should be 48-ish pounds. They are 58 pounds. I talked to Border about this, and the reason, according to them, is that this bow is really supposed to be going onto a Tempest or a Border-made riser. Which brings me to another point when it comes to Border. They are not adhering to the ILF measurement rules in terms of length. So whenever I was running the Border Tempest riser that I did a review about with a regular pair of ILF limbs by a different manufacturer, the riser was a tad longer than all the other 19-inch risers I had. Or was it a 21-inch Tempest? I don't remember. I think it was a 19. So I always had to have like either my strings were super twisted or the strings were too short. I had to get like custom strings. It's the same here. So this is actually a string that was too short. It was made for a 68-inch bow, but it was too short from the guy who built it. And now I actually twisted it a little bit more and put it on this, which is a 66-inch bow. So just to like make this thing a little bit shorter and simpler, these are supposed to be 66 on 19, and the limbs are just a tad longer, and they make kind of a 67-inch bow. That is not a big deal, but it's a little bit annoying because we have ILF to mix and match and swap things back and forth. Now, if you as a brand don't really adhere to that rule, that makes things a little bit trickier for people. If you know what you're getting yourself into, that's not a big deal. So why did I say that I ended up really liking this bow, despite all of these quirks, if you will? Well, at the end of the day, with the big deflex on this riser, I was able to run a really short brace height of just about 6 inches here at the limb pockets. So the limbs have very little pretension. They are very straight, as you can see. With this, I got this bow, like I said, to about 57 pounds. And I have to say, it's a stable, fast, and very forgiving bow now that I can totally see myself taking for any type of even string walking. Because at the end of the day, Border builds their limbs, their longbow limbs, so stable. I mean, I could do literally like pull-ups from these limbs. There is no twist, like none. And that makes it so stable. The aeroflight, even with these 6.5s with very helical elite veins over, again, center rest, the aeroflight is impeccable, always. And so with all of these quirks and all of these issues, and if you're still listening and watching this video, I have to say, if you find a bow that you can run a really short brace on, or like a really low brace on, these thick limb wedges really unfold what they were designed for by Border, and Border is the only brand who makes them like this. The pretension on these limbs is just the right thing to create a longbow that really looks and feels like a longbow, in my opinion, within an ILF setting, of course. And after dishing out all of these things that I'm really was a little bit on the edge about regarding this riser and this, or like these limbs in this bow. I really want to keep it set up like this for a long time and shoot it for a long time because I enjoy this bow. It is quiet, it is demanding, it is just like the highest performance or most tuned out ILF Longbow setup that I have and that I can imagine. Now, sorry to Border for being a little bit straightforward here, but I think after all of these videos I kind of owe everybody to give my full and clear opinion. And now probably the question at the end is, who is this bow for? I don't know. I've even string walked this. It's 67 inches long. I have a 27-inch draw. I have string walked this bow successfully. I could see it in any hunting situation. I could see it in any 3D type of setup. It's a fun bow. It's for anybody who wants something different, you know. Is it worth its money, these limbs, for $600-700 by the time they probably get to you? Yes and no. Are you the person who wants to tune a little bit? Are you the person who wants to find the right combination of setup to really make it work for you? Then yes, these are within the longbow ILF realm, the most specialized ILF longbow limbs I think in the world today. If you just want to have something easy to shoot and you don't want to bother with all of this, then they're not for you. Maybe a little side note before I'm wrapping this up. These longbow limbs are incredibly easy to tune. Like, they're heavy, so I would definitely recommend you, if you're not running a riser by Border, go down by at least 5 pounds if you get these. At least 5 pounds to what you actually want. Because this wedge is gonna feel different to you. However, they're tuning amazingly well. They're so consistent from shot to shot. It's amazing. To wrap this up, folks, I really was trying to make a shorter video this time. I really wanted to make something between the 5 and 7 minute mark, but this is not the bow to do this on, because this bow is something, like I said, that had to grow on me for a while, and I had to try a lot of things out to really make it work for me. So at the end of the day, this needed a little bit more going in depth and explaining what I was really shooting for. And so I hope that you still enjoyed that. There's other content coming again as well, but I think for this one I wanted to go a little bit deeper. And thank you very much for the support. Everything that you do here, checking out my website, of course, with my carvings, my leatherwork, my tabs, my knives, you know, all of this kind of stuff. If you're doing a like and subscribe, you know, if you're leaving a comment and some feedback, all of this stuff helps to keep this stuff running, to keep this going. I know everybody says this, but at the end of the day, I'm putting way much more time than just like standing here, shooting, filming, editing. Already before that, in my mind, I'm making these videos in my mind up for weeks before I maybe step out here and start talking. So I appreciate it, folks. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I'm gonna catch you on the flip side. Cheers.